new immigrant survey. Guillermina,
Thank you very, very much. It's an enormous pleasure to be here. I have learned so much from all of you. This is an amazing collection of scholars in this room. I'm to talk about the New Immigrant Survey, and one of the very first things you're going to learn is that it's impossible to understand what's in the survey, what the survey is good for, how to use the survey, unless there's a good understanding of the immigration environment in the United States. Now, obviously, we're here to talk about longitudinal studies, so I'm going to do my best to skip over everything you really need to know if you're going to use the data in order to get to the parts that are really longitudinal study. Now, I think everybody here knows that you can think of all foreign-born people in the U.S. as belonging in one of four categories. The importance of this for the New Immigrant Survey is that the New Immigrant Survey is a sample of people newly admitted to legal permanent residence. Okay? So that's one of those four groups that you see there. And this is just to show you what the numbers look like. Currently, about 1 million people a year get their green cards. There's in the United States a basically four-tier system. There's numerically unlimited visas, numerically limited visas, humanitarian, and legalization. And you see there more or less the numbers recently. So those are the pathways to getting the green card. Now, as also most of you here know, most immigrants in the U.S. require sponsors. So the minute we talk about the sponsor, we are incorporating a larger panorama of people who are vital actors in the migration process, even though they may not be migrants themselves. So the sponsor initiates the visa process. That visa process is arduous, stressful, can be extremely long, up to 23 years. And we don't have time on this. You ask me, when does it ever go to 23 years? But I can certainly tell you. And because the green card is such a precious thing, and because there is restriction in the United States. There are large backlogs of people approved for a visa and waiting for it. And so what you see here is that right now there are over 4 million people who have already been approved, but they won't get their green card for many years. This is from that set that is capped at about 366,000 a year. So with a little arithmetic, you can see that we already know, in part, who's going to get a green card in 10 years. Because they're already approved right now and they're waiting. And of course, what no one knows is where they are. And if they're in the US, are they in some legal status or not? No one knows about that. Okay, this is for the most recent year, the figures are available. This is the breakdown of new green card recipients. So you can see that persons from Mexico get by far the largest share of new green cards every year. And this has been going on for many years, and it will continue to do so based in part on that information that we have from those backlogs. Visa composition, I'm going to skip over that now. Most green card recipients are women. That's a very important and interesting fact about U.S. immigration. Many are young, etc. Now here is a slide that is critically important for longitudinal studies, and it's the following. The visa process continues even after a person receives a green card. Why? Because some green card recipients receive green cards that have conditionality restrictions. This is not a trivial number, and there are two of these sets. One is spouses and children whose green card is based on a marriage of less than 2 years duration. And the second is a very small set, but important nonetheless, employment-based visas to investors. When these individuals receive a green card, they have to remove the conditionality restrictions within 2 years. We're going to come back to that. Moreover, when you receive a green card, legal permanent residence is indefinite, but the green card is not. The green card must be renewed. It expires in 10 years. So the visa process continues. And in a longitudinal study, we want to know what's going on. Is the individual renewing the green card or not? And if not, why not? Is the individual removing the conditionality restrictions, etc.? So this becomes terribly important, and it displays the dynamic character of immigration. The migration process is dynamic, and it continues after LPR. And it continues in still further ways, because the new green card recipient can now sponsor new immigrants. Moreover, the new green card recipient will at some point become eligible to become a citizen, either by naturalizing as an adult or by deriving citizenship as a child. And again, these are important dynamic things that happen over time. So cross-section data would never provide the information that is required to understand it. Then there is immigration. Not all green card recipients remain. They leave. And of course, it's terribly important to understand who leaves, how long they're away, do they ever come back? What about their children? Do the children remain in the U.S., et cetera, and then many other things that continue over time. Now, some children, for example, we said in this, one of the things that is skipped on this slide was that the new green card recipient may want to sponsor a green card for a child. And so immediately you wonder why. Why didn't the child get a green card at the same time as the parents? And this slide, and I don't have time to go over everything, but this slide pulls together the 5 reasons why a child may be ineligible for a green card when the child's parents receive a green card. All right? So again, this dynamic nature of migration. And these non-LPR children of new LPRs, they're going to be sponsored in the future. And of course, we want to know where they are. And if they're in the U.S., what status are they in? I pulled together some information on naturalization, but I'm going to skip it. The reason it's here is that we don't understand the environment that the new green card recipient faces unless we understand the law on acquiring citizenship. So I'm skipping that. Okay. The science of migration. When you study migration, there are 4 central questions. And they concern migrants at entry. This is usually called the selection question. Then migrants' characteristics and behavior changing over time. This is usually called the assimilation question. And then questions about their children, the second generation question. And finally, the question on impacts of migration on the origin and destination countries. Now, throughout, there is a unifying thread. And this unifying thread, I think, is most eloquently expressed in classical words from an unknown Latin author. Ubi bene, ibi pater. For one is well off, there is one's country. What's important about that? Well, among many other things, it signals all the dimensions of being well off. It's not merely economic, it's not merely political, it's not merely anything. It's whatever contributes to a person's happiness. And immediately you see that there's a link between migration and virtually every domain of the human experience. Identity, language acquisition, civic virtue, very importantly. And so studying migration opens the doors to watching these processes unfold over time. So longitudinal studies are the ideal approach. So now a few words about the new immigrant survey. The objective is to create a new public use database on legal immigrants and their children that will help answer fundamental questions about migration behavior and the impacts of immigration. And there's a history, lots and lots of people and panels and gatherings, such as this gathering here, contributed to the development of that design. The principal investigators, the sources of support, and the design. First, representative samples of brand new green card recipients, including both new arrivals and adjustees. And this is critical. A person can get a green card when they're away. Say they are living in Bolivia, they get a green card, they show up in the US with a green card. That's a new arrival. Or a person can be studying in the US or a temporary worker in the US and adjust to legal permanent residence and that way get the green card. Many previous designs for this type of longitudinal study had excluded adjustees. And yet adjustees are critically important behaviorally, and numerically, it turns out they're over half the set of new green card recipients in about 55, 56%. So this new design would obtain information about the sample immigrant plus family members in the household, family members elsewhere, others in the household, and children, including those born here. It would re-interview them periodically. This is the longitudinal aspect. Also obtain histories, retrospective, as well as prospective, and do child assessment. So this basically tells us how to get that first set of persons in the sample. Now, because this design had never been tried before, and nobody knew if it would work, and if it would work, how much would it cost, and how could one make it cost effective? We did a pilot. And it turns out that pilot, based on people who got their green cards in 1996, has been very useful substantively. And I believe, and I hope I can persuade you that it will continue to be very important, provided, as you will see in one of my last slides, provided it is possible to do some linkage to administrative records. All right, the 2003 cohort is the first major cohort of the NIS. So you see here the target population was everybody who got their green card in 7 months of 2003. I'm going to skip a lot of the fine points of the design because we really don't have time, but all the information is on the web, and of course you can write me, and I'd be delighted to send you the information. The bottom line is that it's nationally represented. Now, language. Immigrants appear with lots and lots of native languages. So early on, the team of PIs developed a basic principle. This was interview all respondents in the language of their choice. This means that it would be possible to show up at a home and use one language for the sampled adult immigrant, a different language for that sampled adult immigrant's spouse, and still a different language for that immigrant's child, age-eligible child. Okay? This was extremely demanding. We worked very hard to develop a protocol that I'm going to skip over, except to tell you that at baseline round, interviews were conducted in 95 languages. By the way, that has an effect on mode because it wasn't always possible to find an interviewer or an interpreter with the right language at the right place. And so in those cases, the interviews were conducted by telephone. And you can ask me more about mode, and I'll be happy to tell you. The response rate, which for that population, and at that time in the U.S. is considered more than respectable, you see here, 68% for the adult sample and 64% for the child sample. I'm going to skip over this. This is a very fine detailed family. Questionnaires cover everything that you might be interested in, that any immigration child assessments. So the idea was to have subsequent rounds every 3 to 4 years, plus choose a new cohort either 5 years later or whenever some big change in the world warranted. That new cohort has not materialized, and hopefully I will have a couple of minutes to tell you about that. Something about the immigration climate changed in the United States, and we can no longer, at the present time, we can no longer draw a random sample of the population of new green card recipients. Basically, if you're interested, you can ask me more about that. I have every hope that that privacy curtain will be lifted, and that there will again be another cohort. And of course, aligned with that, there's other information that you want. You're going to see a little bit more about that. And it depends, our getting it depends on that privacy curtain being lifted. Okay, here you see the language design for the second round. And as you can see, we learned from the first round, we learned that there were some languages we had not planned for, which were important, like AI. And again, we have the teams, the interviewer, and the interpreter. The questionnaires at the second round update all information from round 1. Job history, for example, language use, religion. And in the child sample, children who reach 18 years of age are now administered the adult questionnaire from the first round. So that's it. We bring them into the adult. The response rate was 45% in the second round. And this, after much thinking and discussing, reviewing protocols and sitting down with all the field organizations, this is the 2006, 2007, 2008 are the years when the immigration climate in the U.S. changed drastically and quickly. Part of what happened is that everyone became afraid of deportation. And as everyone in this room knows from figures on deportation, those fears were realistic. Yeah. There was a time when we thought that green card recipients had nothing to be afraid of, right? They have the green card. So what if they're not a citizen yet and could be deported? So what if even if they became a citizen, they could be denaturalized and deported? They still had a big measure of support that green card. Well, guess what? As we're going to see on a slide very quickly, it turns out that a very large proportion of new green card recipients are previous illegals. Moreover, it turns out that many green card recipients live with illegals, have unauthorized persons in their families, in their homes. So it is not difficult to understand that they will be very apprehensive of participating in that second round. All right, we still have the scientific questions to answer for the sample. Who will become a citizen and when? Will they naturalize? Will the children derive citizenship? Will they be sponsoring relatives to get green cards? And if so, which relatives and when? And obviously, it'll be important to analyze the links between those behaviors and residence and co-residence and remittances, and will leave the U.S. and when. And that's where you can get the data. So now let's look at it. Let's take a very brief look at it. I'm going to go right to the illegal experience slide because this helps us understand the second round. And by the way, all of us are of a mind, David. When the third round comes, and as I said, I am hopeful that it will. When the third round comes, we're going to go back to everyone, whether or not they participated in the second. So a total of almost 39% of new green card recipients were previously in the U.S. in an unauthorized status. And by the way, that's a lower bound because there are other ways they could have become illegal that we were not able to detect, such as working without permission in certain cases. Okay? This just pulls together the percent formerly illegal by visa status. So you can see that among persons who get their green cards by marrying a U.S. citizen, and that's far and away the largest group. Around half, had previous illegal experience. I'm going to, in the interest of time, I'll leave you to ask me, and I'll be happy to come back and look at that. I'll skip those, but I don't want, there's something at the bottom of this slide that is very interesting. One of the questions that the baseline round was about the intention to stay in the United States. And there are three response categories, as you can see: no, uncertain, yes. And then you see the proportions for the total and for those with previous illegal experience. And one of the fascinating things is that persons who have been in the U.S. illegally have a larger proportion of saying, yes, they will stay in the U.S. Every time I see this, I think of how hard they worked for this, and now they have it in their working. And it also makes me think of Jacob working 14 years to marry Rachel. Something precious that they have. Now, we do have those down-to data, and they're starting to be used. They're available for public use. Lots of people around the world are using them. I'm using them. And this slide, the next slide, shows that if all we looked at in the world were visa class, country of origin, there's not much difference between the composition in round 1 and round 2. But of course, as everybody in this room knows, there's all those other things that we lump together as unobserved heterogeneity that are at work. And so we have to use all our best statistical and econometric tools to deal with this. Now, I'm going to linger a little on this question on sponsorship. This was asked in the second round. Since you became a legal permanent resident, have you yourself filed a petition to begin the process to bring a relative to live permanently in the United States? And yes, they have. And it turns out about 10% have petitioned for relatives already, and about 6% have petitioned for children. So this is already telling us something about the people. Either those children that they are petitioning for were too old to be eligible at round 1, or the family is now in a better economic circumstance and can now meet the financial requirements for sponsoring a new person. And again, I'm going to skip this detail and go to a second question in round 2. Remember those conditionality restrictions? Well, there's a question in round two. What's happening? So here's what we have. About 2/3 of the sample filed to remove the restrictions. Now, this is long after that 2-year period. Okay? So a third did not file to remove their conditionality restrictions. And then you see that the conditionality restrictions were removed for 61%. The petition is pending for 3%, denied for 2.6%, and 8% have not filed. And interestingly, 19% denied having a conditional visa. Now, we know they had a conditional visa because when we drew the sample, we were given the details of their new green card from the government. And those details include the visa category. And the visa category tells you whether there's a conditionality restriction. So the bottom line is that up to 39% may have lapsed into illegality of this group, the conditionality restriction group. So again, this helps us understand that how the combination of their personal circumstances and that extraordinary change in the U.S. political climate of immigration combined to produce that low response rate under 50% in round two. So now, last few slides. How to maximize the scientific data. Obviously, we want a new cohort. Obviously, we want a round three. What else can we do? Well, administrative data exists on removal of conditionality restrictions. We could get that information for everyone if the privacy curtain were lifted and researchers were allowed access to those data. Okay? Same thing with green card renewal. These persons in the 2003 cohort and the earlier ones in 96 are way past the 10-year expiration of the green cards. We could learn who renewed the green cards and who did not. That would shed a lot of light on immigration, for example. Residential mobility. There's a government database, which we used when we were in the middle of data collection in round one, because at that time we had permission to use it. After that, the privacy curtain descended and we could no longer access those files. And those files are extremely useful to know exactly who each person has gone, because they are required by law. Green card recipients are required to file a change of address form. I think it's within 10 days of new. Citizenship, naturalization among adults. This is something we could easily learn because there's a common identifier. But if we don't have access to it, derived citizenship is more difficult to learn, but we're confident that combining the right kinds of administrative data, we could nail that as well. And sponsorship is easy because there's that form I-130 that every person must file when they're going to sponsor an event. So this would maximize the scientific payoff of the data enormously. And as I said, I'm hopeful. It won't be this year, probably not next year. These are political years in the United States, but I am hopeful that good sense and good judgment will prevail. How else can we maximize scientific payoff? Well, it's possible to design a study to look at survey effects. Contrast two groups, those invited to participate in the microphone survey and those not. This goes to that question that one of you asked before lunch. And because we would have that same information on naturalization, on the green card renewal, on sponsorship, we would have for everyone, whether or not they were in the new immigrant sample. we would be able to tell whether having been invited or having participated had some visible effect. Examine differences in immigration, naturalization, English fluency from naturalization data, for example. How else can you maximize the scientific payoff? Well, cohort comparison. It turns out that the 1996 cohort is very, very special. 1996 was the last year before the new, very stringent requirements on finances, on financial requirements kicked in. Okay, they all kicked in 1997. So comparing the 96 cohort without affidavit of support, etc., and the 2002 cohort with, would be extremely valuable. Then, I don't know how many of you in this room are familiar with this, but for many years, there has been this puzzle underlying immigration work in the U.S., and it's the following. There's a list every year of people who get green card. And we know from the visa number that some are principals and some are spouses and some are children. But we don't know who goes with whom. Nobody's ever known. We've tried. Many people have tried. And I think that question could be usefully revisited. Looking at new immigrant survey data combined with administrative data, and it might be possible to formulate a protocol for going from those lists of individuals with new green cards to reconstituted families of green card recipients. And then, of course, more elaborate families, such as we see here, in the case of a spouse with a U.S. citizen visa, you have biological children of the spouse or stepchildren of the U.S. citizen, and the U.S. citizen may have biological children as well. There's some results in the literature about that. Very, very little so far. And then finally, to maximize scientific data, interview entire families. In the new immigrant survey, we interviewed the main sampled immigrant and the spouse, and up to 2 age-eligible children. Okay? Now we know. Rebecca talked this morning about how we're learning, how the frontier of knowledge is moving. One of the things that we've learned is that we can't understand a lot of decisions, a lot of things that migrants do, unless we have information directly from all the other relevant actors. Because the migration process involves many persons. So, for example, the decision to include eligible children in an LDR application and or to take them to the United States involves lots of people, parents, children, a variety of possible caretakers, and competitors for the caretakers' time. So you need siblings, children, parents, you need lots of people. So for planning the next incarnation of the new immigrant survey, I think the plan will be to go from the household survey to a true family survey. Okay, this is what I've looked at. I thank you very much, and I look forward to your comments and questions.
Guillermina, for your very nice talk. I have time for one question for each speaker. To President, President, two questions. One for Guillermina, one for Pablo. Okay, so cool. Delfina, please.
Okay. This question is for Guillermina. Thank you for the talk. In this study, are you planning or you have in mind having instruments for measuring acculturation, enculturation, identity formation for these people? or it's just facts that we saw in your.
That's a wonderful question. I was joking with Paula earlier about how when we first designed the questionnaire, we had a questionnaire that would last 10 hours. And then, of course, we had to cut and cut and cut and cut. So yes, we do have drafts about all those things. However, the only questions that are currently in the New American Survey are factual questions about language use, for example. With whom do you use which language? And incidentally, there's a huge variety, and we learn a lot from looking at this data about what people are doing. Also, there's information on language history. So what language did the person use when they were age 10 with their parents at home? Then there's also a religion history. And again, that gives you a lot of information about how they are changing. So people who once had a religion no longer have any religion. People who once had no religion, and we know who they are, most of them are from countries of the former Soviet Union. Many of them now do have a religion. And a lot of that you can get right from that first round. And it starts to illuminate what they are thinking about themselves. But of course, we have all those questions not yet used that will get to the heart of it.
Thank you very much, Guillermina. Is there any questions from them? Okay, thank you.
We were talking about time that you were using with the children. My question is, how long it took you, to analyze this information, because it obviously has like a lot of qualitative data, and how many people analyze this?
Thank you. So as you said, the time diary really is a qualitative document. There's a code frame developed for coding that information that is largely derived from time diaries of adult time use, and then has appended to it codes that are appropriate for child-specific behavior. And so we have a team that codes that over about 6 months. And once it becomes quantitative data, it's much easier to manipulate. There's some amount of detail, but things really do constellate around recognizable but distinct topics. So I think the coding is an accurate representation of what's in that qualitative data. It's a very widely used component of the CDS data. I can't give you proportion papers that are all for the time diary data, but these are the only nationally representative time use data we have for children. So it's a very widely used resource for a whole lot of things. Studies of health behavior, sleeping, time with friends, time with parents. So for a variety of disciplines, it's a really unique analysis.
Thank you very much. I suppose those calendars are kind of very important for way how we evolve over time. I think if we ever had a cohort of children here, we will need to have some kind of that kind of calendar. So I think that's one of the most parts of the child development study. So thank you very much. Okay, so.